right. As we get kicked off, if you could all go on mute, please. I really appreciate that, as we are going to start with a small presentation, and then we will have plenty of opportunities to get to know one another and share. I am very excited to see everyone. I see Carmen, Carol, Deborah, Daniel, Helen, Monica, Raphael. Welcome, everyone. If you would like to introduce yourself in the chat, we would love to have you put your name, your organization affiliation, while we just wait for some others to join us. Welcome, everyone. Hello, Helen.
Carrie, can you reshare the run of show with me, please? Sorry, I had trouble getting in. Thanks. No problem. Appreciate it.
All right. Welcome to today's event. As we all gather, please introduce yourself in the chat. All right, great to see you. Hi, Jennifer. Pablo, Monica, welcome. All right. If you need Spanish or French interpretation, you can select the channel at the bottom of your screen. Excellent. Nice to see everyone today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Hello to everyone who's joined us today. We are in the Global Reading Network networking event. My name is Carrie Stout, and I will be your facilitator for today's networking session. I want to acknowledge all of these different organizations and country contexts that we have in the room. I'm incredibly excited. We have Save the Children here, Ghana, USAID Washington, UK. Welcome. If you would like a French or Spanish interpretation channel, please go ahead and do so now. They are at the bottom of your screen. And when we do breakout rooms, if you would like to join a French or a Spanish breakout room, you may do so at that time. If you think you might need some help, you can rename yourself with French or Spanish after your name, FR or SR. You can do this by clicking the 3 dots at the top right of your participant frame and click Rename. Otherwise, we'll instruct you how to join the Spanish and French breakout sessions yourself. In addition to being your facilitator today, I'm also the International Project Coordinator for the Global Reading Network. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Susan Ross, to introduce you to the Global Reading Network.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Ross. I am the Learning Network Lead for USAID's Global Reading Network, which is part of the Leading Through Learning Global platform. What is GRN? The Global Reading Network is part of the USAID Leading Through Learning Global platform, which includes 2 other global learning networks, the Higher Education Learning Network and the Education in Crisis and Conflict Network, as well as regional chapters in Latin America and the Caribbean and Africa. Our goal is to facilitate the global conversation about foundational skills and education around the world. We hope that in addition to staying tuned to GRN, you'll be interested in collaboration across the platform. This networking session will be one of a series that we plan to have every 3 months this year. We hope that you will come, exchange experience and ideas, and enjoy each other's company.
Thanks so much, Susan. In this webinar, we want you to have the opportunity to network with members of the Global Reading Network, as well as to learn a bit about remedial education, USAID's Reading Matters framework, and how various contexts have rolled out remedial education programming. To continue this conversation for us, I will turn it over to Carmen Henriquez, the Basic Education Advisor, who is looking into remediation from USAID Center for Education. Carmen, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. It is my pleasure to be with you. And thank you very much for this invitation from the Global Reading Network. I know that there's a lot of interest around learning loss and how we can commit and how we can collaborate together in approaching this accelerated education process to improve learning outcomes at the school level. I know that it's a responsibility of us to try to connect and align our programming, and I'm happy to be here. First, I will give a small snapshot on the global context. Maybe the global context, you all know it, but it's always good to remind us that the learning loss has been there for a while, and that we need to do something together. Second, I will present the USAID Reading Matters framework. This is a framework that was developed in 2019, and I'll talk a little bit more on the 7 components. Then I will be presenting the literature review on remedial education. This is a recently developed report that we launched this year, and I wanted to share some findings on remedial education, as well as presenting 4 case studies that are part of this literature review that has focused on remediation, and finalizing with some conclusions. Okay, so I will start with the global context. There's 2 very interesting reports developed by the World Bank. One that was launched in 2022 that was mentioning the state of global learning. It is stressed, this report was in collaboration between the World Bank, UNESCO, UNICEF, USAID, and the Bill and Melinda Foundation. They stressed out that even before the pandemic, there was already a learning crisis. 57% of children were not able to read or write a simple test by age 10 in low and middle income countries. The other document that I will make a reference is one that was launched in 2023 by the World Bank, the Learning Recovery to Acceleration. In this report, over 60 countries documented what they are doing regarding remediation and accelerated learning due to COVID. It's a nice report. It's a nice report to read and to consult because it provides country-specific strategies after COVID. One of the findings is that over 1 billion of children missed out at least 1 full year of in-person schooling. That means that 1 billion of children lost 1 complete year of school. Third, as we all know, the pandemic is likely to have a lasting and unequal impact on global learning levels. Even though that we have been working on improving access and quality, there's much to do. Recently, we participated in this LAC accelerated education workshop in which 8 countries got together from the LAC region. And one of the things that we were all sharing was the lack of access to out-of-school children and youth. Even though all countries in Latin America that participated in this conference had accelerated education, there was much to do regarding increasing the access, being flexible and trying to bring the learners' needs at front. Next. In 2019, and this is kind of a reminder because I know that many of you had already known this framework. In 2019, USAID launched the USAID Reading Framework. This is a framework that focuses on identifying 7 components that supports reading outcomes. The acronym: mentors, administrators, teachers, text, extra practice, and regular assessment and standards are put together into a framework. We as USAID believe that a reading program needs to have all these components integrated into everything that we do. As you can see, host country government capacity and commitment is always needed because usually when USAID works in a country, or even any donor that works in a country, is in collaboration with the host government. There's a need, and you will see it in the next literature review that we will be presenting, that there's a need to improve research, adaptation, and scaling of a reading program. At the same time, focusing on the learner's needs through the child well-being. As we all know, it's a children's right to be well-nourished and to feel safe in a school, to reduce the stress and to focus on their development milestone, as well as to have some recreation and avoid violence. This framework matches all the well-being into what we're trying to achieve through a learning outcomes. Next one. In 2023, USAID completed a literature review on remedial education. This was developed with the Data and Evidence for Education program. As you can see, the objective was to compile evidence around the USAID Matters framework on remediation. This was very kind of interesting because we found out that there's a lot of remedial catch-up, accelerated education programs, and sometimes we need to really differentiate what we're doing with out-of-school youth, but with learners that are inside the school, that are already in school. As you can see in this table, even though that we really believe that mentors and administrators play an important role in supporting teachers through on-the-job training or pedagogical support for teachers. In the case of administrators engaging with communities or engaging with families, this is not really supported with evidence. I think we can think about it because pedagogical advisors and school principals really play an important role. As we all know, teachers, they have a lot of things to support, and this is something that most of our programs are tracking and are providing evidence. That literature report provided important findings regarding the social emotional piece of teachers. There's a lot to do with them because they reported the literature reported that there is a lack of social emotional learning among teachers. Text and materials, evidence of impact is very small. We need to know more on what's the evidence around textbooks. The extra practice. Now that we're working more on remedial and trying to catch up learning, I think this extra practice at home or extra practice after school, or that extra practice that is happening inside the classroom is very important. Regular assessment and standards is also very limited, even though the evidence of practice is in a medium side of evidence. And at the last part, the child well-being, that's has a medium and evidence based literature that was reflected in this report. The mental health of students, teachers, and families are so important to improve the achievement and to improve learning outcomes, as well as to incorporate pro-social behavioral processes at the classroom level. Next one. In this report, there's approximately 20 or over best practices program. During this session, I will only talk about 4 that I thought that could be of interest for you. I chose one initiative per region so that we can see that in other regions, we're almost doing similar things that are appropriate to the context. First, I'll start with the LAC region. In Honduras, there's a USAID funded program called Lectores a Líderes, which during the pandemic utilized a simple assessment that was done by parents and teachers. This assessment used the model from Mexico. In Mexico, the Ministry of Education developed this independent measurement for learning called MIA, based on the teaching at the right level experience. And in Honduras, they use this MIA assessment to really track and assess learners' need. As I was mentioning, parents were developing this assessment in a very easy data collection app called the Kobo, a toolbox. Maybe many of you know about it. And it was a very easy thing to identify those that are really struggling. This assessment is done every month, and teachers can identify those students that are struggling and connect with instruction. Supplementary materials were developed, and now teachers are working more closely with parents. Second, the USAID GEMEN program. This experience, I thought that it was very interesting because it had a very system-wide approach while connecting with the Ministry of Education and influencing in the policy education needs by mitigating high-risk children and helping mitigate high-risk learners dropping from school through catch-up programs. This was scaled with the Ministry of Education. There was a huge political will around working together in non-formal education curriculum. And I think this is an experience that shows that how programs should connect with the ministries of education and how we can influence that policy and how can we influence government to continue investing in education. Next one. The third activity that I thought that it was like very interesting, the Kitabi project, the Quality Instruction Toward Access and Basic Education Improvement Project. By reading the report, I found out that this project integrated all the components of the USAID Matters framework. Prior to COVID, they had a Kitabi 1, in which they assessed and they provided a lot of evidence around how to incorporate USAID Matters framework into their programming. This program will be scaling nationwide. We'll be working with the Ministry of Education, and there's huge data around how students and learners are achieving learning outcomes. And the last, and under the Kitabi 2, there's a lot of differentiated learning approaches that could be interesting to see from that side. And the last activity or the last program that I really feel that is moving researchers and is moving educators to find out how best we can connect with this program, because it's providing a lot of results. As we all know, the Pradham is an organization from India. They started this Teaching at the Right Level program prior to COVID. And one of their key elements is to start with a simple assessment, trying to track and try to make an auto-diagnostic to learners that are really struggling. Another key element of the Teaching at the Right Level is tracking progress. That's something that we really need to encourage because the progress needs to be tracked, because we really feel that learners that are behind, even though they are in remedial education after school or inside the school, there's a need to bring them back to the regular classroom and bring them, because this is a support given to them. Supplementary materials should be adapted, and this is something that the Teaching at the Right Level is encouraging, to be adapted to the government's and policies and standards. Doing small groups, big groups, active learning, methodologies that are happening at the classroom level is also important. USAID, looking into the evidence of the TARL, is now expanding efforts in Africa and Latin America. In Africa, there's a joint venture between Pradham and JPAL, which supports government to implement TARL. In Latin America, as I previously mentioned, in Mexico and in Central America and in the Caribbean, more countries are trying to implement the Teaching at the Right Level. What I have found is that they are adapting the Teaching at the Right Level into the context. They are adapting into the needs of each country. Next one. This is a very short presentation, because the idea is to connect with you and to talk about and to really work with you in the small groups and really discuss experience that you might have. In conclusion, what is needed to really have an effective and inclusive classroom management, starting with an assessment. The example that I have already given talks about it. And it's not only the role of teachers, but also families can support on this. Grouping by learning levels, this can be something that teachers can struggle. Therefore, there's a huge need for continuous teacher development to improve target instruction and to help them group learners by their levels of competencies. There's a huge need for continuous learning assessments in a regular manner, providing supplementing learning materials for those, especially for those that are struggling the most. In conclusion, there's a lot of things that we can do. We want to hear you. We want to connect with the donors, with international and with local entities to really help teachers in the schools, especially for those learners that are struggling. Thank you very much. I'll be participating in one of the group sessions in Spanish. I hope that we can connect, and I'm continue to be supporting this effort from USAID Washington. Over to you, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. That was fantastic. All right, we're going to be ending the recording now. So you're going to hear a message.